Well, good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning, October 24th, 2023, and we have these daily Zooms most weekdays at 8 o'clock Central, and our goal is to help increase your familiarity with this grant-subsidized program that is targeted at helping small businesses become qualified to access capital. Before I get started, and I'm sharing my screen here, you should see it, it's so important to recognize that there are lots of small businesses, of course, and many of them, probably most of them, have a desire, a want, sometimes a need for more capital to start, to grow, to reach their potential. So that's understood. The biggest barrier typically is that there's a disconnect between wanting and needing capital versus qualifying for it. And that's really what we do with the startup business funding package that we're going to review today, is to explain how we very practically, very ethically, very legally, very effectively help small businesses qualify for funding. Because if you qualify, you get approved. If you don't qualify, you don't. If at any time you have any questions, comments, or concerns, we use the Q&A, the question and answer function of Zoom. It's kind of like a chat box, but at any point you can type in the question or concern you have, and then we'll address that at the best stopping point. But we do encourage your participation. So let's go ahead and dig into what this startup business funding package is about. Well, we applied for and received a grant. We were the only award winner from the U.S. Startup Grant to put together this turnkey resource to form a new business positioned for fast funding. And that's important because certainly someone can go out and form a new business, but does that mean that it's positioned, that it is credible, that it qualifies for funding? Well, of course not. So what we're doing here is creating a new business position for fast funding. Now, what commonly comes up as we have these discussions is some of you will say, well, I already have a business. How would this help me? Well, two ways. You could almost use it as a checklist. If your business that you currently have meets the criteria, which we'll very transparently go through, then you're good to go. And we can even help you with funding just to get ahead of ourselves. If you scroll down to the resource section, you can go ahead and click here and we can go ahead and go to funding today. And there's no upfront costs, so don't worry about that. So if you do have an entity that is ready to go to funding, skip all this, scroll down, and then click here. But let's go ahead, before we come to that assumption, let's spend a few minutes and talk about what it means to have a credible business. We're going to talk about the what, and we're going to also talk about the why. As many of you know, I used to be a high school teacher, and that was the message that I just tried to ingrain in my high school students is don't accept the what if you don't understand the why. So let's start going through the free resources that are included in the Startup Business Funding Package through the grant. So the first free item is maybe the most important. What we're going to do is provide each participant, I missed a few letters there, didn't I? Still yet, a unique business address. Why would you need a unique business address if you want a business positioned for funding? Well, the address matters. A residential address is not considered credible. A post office box is not considered credible. A shared virtual address is not considered credible. We need a unique commercial address. John has a question. And yes, John, after we finish going through the Startup Business Funding Package, we can stay online and address any questions that you have, John. All right, so that's the first basic element. So you can't just say, oh, I already have an address. We need to stop and determine, is it a credible address? What does it take for it to be a credible address if we want to be positioned for fast funding? And that would mean it is a unique business address. not a shared virtual address, not post office box, not residential. Make sense? Okay, let's move on then. The second thing that we do, and this order is important. I used to work for the SBA, and I commonly saw entrepreneurs mix this order up. So the first step, whether you want to work with us, use this grant-subsidized program or not, doesn't really matter. Start with a good address. Then progress to filing with your Secretary of State. Now, through the grant, we'll do that for free. So we provide the address for free. We'll do the filing for free. Of course, we need to have a business that's in good standing. And why is that important? Obvious reasons. If it's not in good standing, then it's very unlikely that you're going to get any business funding. Third, also free, we're going to go ahead and get the EIN, and most of you know what that is. It's the equivalent what a social security number is to a person, and EIN is to the business. And then we'll open a bank account, which isn't mentioned here, but then we move on free to build out business credit. So I think that's so important to understand the how and the why. So how do we build business credit? We're going to add primary trade lines under the EIN. And we got the EIN after we filed the entity. We got the entity after we had the address, right? The order matters. So how we build business credit is by adding primary trade lines. There's a number of different ways that we can work with you on this step. Maybe we want to add a business automobile. So you have a company car, fully tax deductible. You can do the accelerated tax write-off through Section 179 of the IRS tax code. But we could do one or more company vehicles as an example. Or we could buy real estate in the business name and finance it. And so that would be a trade line. We could get business credit, a credit card or multiple business credit cards under the EIN, your MasterCard, Visa, what have you. We could add Net 30 accounts, just real simple, the Grangers, the U-lines, so forth. So there's a number of different ways we can go about adding primary trade lines. But let's go to, so that's the how, but let's go to the why. Why does that matter? Well, see what we're doing here. We're taking a brand new business and we're instantly making it credible for funding. And that includes having a credible business credit profile. So we want to have an established PAYDEX score with Dun & Bradstreet of at least an 80. We want to have an established Intella score with Experian Business with a score at least 80. Business credit scores go from 0 to 100. So that's what we're doing here. There are programs in the marketplace that will help you build business credit, but they actually can be much more expensive than us being able to do all of this together. So this is a great value. The next thing that we're going to do, and this is usually the least familiar one for many of you, is we're going to transfer over assets legally, ethically. We're going to transfer the title of assets from us to your business and then put them on your balance sheet. If you don't have a balance sheet, we'll help you create a balance sheet for this new business. So that's the what. Why would we do that? That just seems like a distraction, right, man? I just want fast funding. I don't want to go through these steps. Well, what did we say when we started? We can't just want money. We can't just need money. We must have a qualified business. And so we're going through what's typically referred to as the 3 C's: credit, collateral, and capacity, making sure that the business is credible. So for that 1 C, collateral, so we're literally transferring over accounts receivables into your business's name, legally and ethically. It's real, it works. Now, these are not organic receivables, so it's not like you started a bakery and you sold $10,000 worth of muffins that someone owes you for. That would be an organic receivable. These are acquired receivables, but guess what? They show exactly the same on the financials. They carry the same weight. So what we're going to do is transfer over the $10,000 in assets, and then turn around and help you liquidate it, turn it into cash. Because 10,000 of receivables on your balance sheet is incredibly valuable for qualifying for funding. But what would we all prefer to have? 10,000 in our pocket or in our business bank account. And so we do that as well. And then we also lastly provide geographic access to the Chapman Fund. The Chapman Fund is just one of many different funding sources that we can pursue now that we have a credible business by going through these steps. But the Chapman Fund is unique. It's special, so you should know about it. The Chapman Fund is a resource that comes not from a bank, not from a credit union, not from an alternative lender, not from some high interest rate company. It instead comes from a taxing authority. So in other words, there is a governmental entity, or I guess I'd say a quasi-governmental entity, that has put together a fund to provide up to $250,000, as disclosed here, to start or grow a business in their taxing district. And so, of course, when we form these businesses, we're forming them in the taxing district for the Chapman Fund. Now, I know many of you kind of scoff at this. It's like only 250,000, that's not enough. Well, this could just be the first tranche. That doesn't mean that your business has to stop at 250, but this is an innovative, valuable resource that you might not have been aware of and might not qualify for otherwise. But certainly your business can pursue much larger capital raises than just $250,000. So the bottom line is we can help your business get positioned for funding with no risk. I talk to a lot of people on the phone, and I love working with people, and I realize how we need to improve. When we develop this simple landing page, we put in all bold letters, it's a two-step process to participate. You'd be surprised by how many people don't understand to follow those two steps. It's obviously a reflection of us, not of them. So we somehow have to do a better job, but I'll explain to you, and then maybe you can give me feedback. There's two steps. Step one is watch the training video right here. Step two is to click here to enroll. That's it. There's those two steps. Now, the truth be known, since you and I have spent time together on today's Zoom, you could even skip step one if you wanted, but you don't have to. But that's the process. It's two steps. Step one, step two. Step one, step two. To me, obvious. To others, not so much. So we'll work on improving that. If you scroll on down, you'll have our contact us information, but that's less important than the resources. I want to go through these resources to make sure that you know what's available, and then I want to open it up for questions, comments, concerns from each of you. The first resource is a link, and it's a duplicate. This is the same as step two. So step two, and this is exactly the same. We just wanted to make sure that it was included under the resource tab. So we've covered that. As I made brief reference to earlier, we have the ability to get financing offers for clients with no hard inquiries, no upfront cost. And frankly, this is available for those folks that go through the startup package, or those, as we mentioned earlier, that if you use this as a checklist and you say, man, I don't need this. I have all this in place. I've got a business that's got a good, credible, commercial, unique address. I'm in good standing with the Secretary of State. I have my EIN. I have my business bank account. I have my business financials. I have my balance sheet. I have my income statement. I have really strong business credit. I've got plenty of collateral for loans. Then you don't need this, and that's okay. You're not hurting our feelings. This is meant to assist those that aren't as fortunate as you, that aren't as prepared as you. And so regardless, we can go to financing. And how would we go to financing? We click here. Again, no upfront cost, get offers, accept the offers that you want. The typical client will get 6 to 8 offers. And you know what you'll get, we'll just have to see. Angela, who's on the training this morning. She just got funded. Was it 16,000? I'm pulling from memory. 16,812, I think, dollars as her first tranche. So different people will get different amounts. Kahid's not on here. He just got 20,000. So different people will get different amounts. But we'll find out how much you get by using that button. If you want more training and funding success stories, you can click on the third resource link. And some of you have approached us and said, hey, this is great. This is needed. I'd like to become a distribution partner. Well, this is how you would do that. I was talking to one lady yesterday. She's on the West Coast and she runs a nonprofit. Her nonprofit has been awarded a number of grants to help small businesses within a specific industry, which I'll leave generic just to protect her confidentiality. But yesterday she became a distribution partner. I believe she said she was going to. I'd have to check. It's early. But we work with key influencers or just individuals that just want to help others with this program. So let me stop talking and start listening. So Nate, you got your hand up if you want to go ahead and type the question into the Q&A. Who has questions about this? How can I assist any of you in understanding this? All right, Vikas asked about the current turnaround time. When we file with the Secretary of State, we'll notify you when the filing has been submitted. So we'll provide the documentation to you for that. The Secretary of State, I would say 3 to 5 days is the norm, but it's beyond our control. We've had a few turn around in the same day. It's like magically. We've had some process through on a Sunday. And it's like, how did that happen? I thought the government was closed on weekends. And sometimes it can be closer to a week. But normally, I would say 3 to 5 days is the norm. But you'll be in the loop, so no worries about that. Quantrell asked about an existing business. Well, Quantrell, that's a great question, and that's what I was trying to establish. This is a specific package that we receive grant funding to help clients with, and it includes all of these bullets. It includes all of those bullets. That's the way the grant is written. So, if someone didn't want to participate with this in this package, well, I guess Quantrell's question is more specific. Quantrell's already got an existing business. Well, then that's the point I meant to make earlier, and it's my fault, not yours. The fact that you have an existing business is irrelevant. The question is, Quantrell or anyone else, is your existing business positioned for fast funding? And as I've done already, you can just take it through your business through this checklist. And if your business says yes to all of these elements that we've included, you don't need the startup package. Then just scroll down, go right here, and enroll. And we'll go to funding today. But if you don't have those elements in place, you've got a decision. Either get your business positioned credible by fixing whatever voids you may have, or let's just do a new business for your funding. That doesn't mean that your existing business has to go away. Many people own multiple businesses. Elon Musk, right? SpaceX, and used to be called Twitter, now it's called X, and Tesla. So it's okay if you own multiple businesses. Maybe we form a new business just for your capital raise. It doesn't mean that you have to abandon what you already have. Nate's asking about our contact us information, and that's my mistake. I should have brought that better to your attention. Sorry, Nate. My apologies. All right, so who else has questions about the startup business funding package? What it does, why it does it, why these elements are included? Because part of what we receive the grant for is to build financial literacy. So if you leave today's Zoom and say, you know what, I've learned what I need to learn, I'll just go do it on my own. That is fine. What do you need to do? You need a unique business address that's not a shared address. You need to have a business that's in good standing with the Secretary of State. Of course, you need an EIN and business bank account. You need to have strong business credit. You need to have collateral on your balance sheet, right? So those are the elements of a credible, fundable business. All right. So now mispronounce your name. I apologize in advance. Wasinki. That's my best effort. Beautiful name. So the question is, past the creation process, is there assistance? Absolutely. Yeah. So this is the start. Well, as it's stated, this is how we help businesses get started. And the question that it looks like Brenda has is, is there a performance fee? Do you have to pay us for money raised after creating this? And the answer is no. There is no performance fee. There's no back-end fees for this. So don't worry about that. And then dovetailing back to Wasinki's question, absolutely, if you want further assistance in going for funding, whether you've done this or not, then you have this link that's available with no upfront cost, right? You'll see it. There's no upfront cost. There's no hard inquiries. All right, so who else has questions? And if you are one of our distribution partners, feel free to ask any questions you have from that perspective. And if you're thinking about becoming a distribution partner, which I'm not here to recruit you, but if you have questions regarding that, that's fine. All right, so Fu asked, can it be a virtual business address? Well, we have to describe virtual. It just needs to be unique, and that's why it says not shared. So you need to have a unique suite number that is not used by anyone else. So the problem with a lot of these virtual addresses, like through Regis and WeWork, which I think highly of them both, have nothing negative to say, but any of those models that gives you a shared address, in other words, you have suite. When we first got started, we didn't know all this. This initiative essentially started May 11th, 1996, and it's evolved a lot. But early on, we didn't know a lot of the things back in 96 that we know now. So frankly, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, our first address was a Regis address. And it was Suite 400. I remember that. But you know what? Regis had Suite 400 for lots of other businesses. I don't know how many other, probably hundreds, maybe thousands, but at least hundreds. That doesn't work. So the fact that it's a virtual address, Fu, is not the problem. We have to make sure that it's not shared, that you have a unique suite number. Thanks. Great question. Audrey is asking average underwriting time frame for the Chapman Fund. So I'm going to answer that indirectly, and then I'll answer it directly. What's so important to understand is that what we're doing by going through this process, Audrey and others, is we're building a credible business that's positioned for fast funding. There are many places that we could go for funding, many places. The Chapman Fund is one of them that we do geographically qualify for. That's why it's on the list, but it's just one of them. But the Chapman Fund tends to be really easy to work with. The gentleman that runs it used to be my employee, actually, and a great guy. Spent time with him and his family, took him to the country club. All's good. So with that, the Chapman Fund, you're probably normally looking at around a 30-day process. But keep in mind, there are other funding sources that we could pursue while we're waiting for the Chapman Fund. There's other funding sources that we could use in addition to the Chapman Fund. There's other funding sources we could use in lieu of the Chapman Fund. So it's a very valuable resource, but it's not the only resource, is the point I'm trying to make. And that's the point I was bringing to your attention here. Once we go ahead and apply for financing offers, and let's go ahead and click it just so you see it. It'll pop up here. If you click on that, so I clicked it live. It's popping up a new screen here. So this will ask you to fill out a funding proposal application. So you'll put in business information. Now notice it says this information is optional, because I realize that you may not have this yet, especially if you don't have an existing business. So in other words, we're creating one here. So it's okay. So notice when there's a little star, a little asterisk, it means it's required. Nothing up here is required. And then the bottom is the key person, you, the primary owner. And of course, that information is needed. But you can fill this out and we can get you some funding offers and let's see what you qualify for. All right, so let's see. We covered Audrey's question. Vicus has another question on collateral, and that's a great point. So one of the things that we do that I believe distinguishes, well, let's step back. What makes this different from what else is available? Well, number one, we're the only one that received the grant funding for this program. So it's unique. No one else does this, to my knowledge. But when we say this, what does that mean? Are there other places that you could go get a unique address? Sure. Go do it if you wish. Doesn't matter to me. Can you file with the Secretary of State yourself or go to LegalZoom or hire an attorney? Sure. Go right ahead. Doesn't matter to us. Now, we do these things for free, by the way, but yeah, you could go do that other places. Can you get your EIN on your own? Of course, it's free from the IRS and it's free through the program. So, there are, we'll just call it competitors to each of these, or you could do it yourself. Could you build out your own business credit? Could you get your credit strong enough to buy business automobiles or business real estate or get business credit cards? Sure. Yeah, we don't have some unique intellectual capital or patent on this. Now, we do this for free for you, but sure, you could do it on your own or do it elsewhere. Then we get down to the point about the collateral, which is Vicus' point. So we're literally transferring over $10,000 of assets that are real, and then we help you turn around and liquidate those and turn that into cash. I don't know that anyone else does that. I've not ran into that. Maybe it's possible, but I don't believe. So I do believe that this is unique. And then, of course, the receivables ends up being cash. And so now you're sitting on a pile of cash that I don't know anyone else is giving away. If you need more collateral, we can add more collateral. It's not capped at 10,000. We could add 100,000. We could add 1 million, whatever it is you need. And then, of course, geographic access to the Chapman Fund. So the bottom line is it's a unique package, I believe. We essentially pay you to participate instead of you paying us. We're essentially paying you to participate because of the value proposition in this bullet. But again, you're not going to hurt our feelings. You can do it on your own if you wish. All right. Well, we've ran almost to the bottom of the hour. Let's see. We've got one more question that we'll take, and then we'll end it for today. But remember, we're together most weekday mornings at this time. So if you think about it and you have other questions or concerns, join us tomorrow morning. If you want to be a referral partner, bring some guests tomorrow morning, and then you can follow up with those people that you invite to the Zoom afterwards and help them get enrolled. All right. So last question. Wasinki says that over 50% of new businesses fail. Yeah. There is a high failure rate of new businesses. I think the number one reason that new businesses fail is a lack of funding. And the good news is through this resource, and if you're one of our distribution partners, you literally have the ability to keep businesses alive and help them thrive and help them reach their potential by getting funding, because without funding, it's hard to bootstrap. And so that's obviously, the draw here is that what you and I are doing is helping other small businesses have a legal, credible, and fundable business. So we can overcome the number one reason for failure. Now, there's other ways or reasons that a business could fail: mismanagement, maybe it's just a bad business model. We see a few of those come through. Sometimes people just really have a bad idea. And even some of you, I won't mention any names, but there's even some of you on here that have come to us as clients and then pivoted. You changed your business idea as we went through embedded because you realized that wasn't such a good idea. But that's not unusual, right? People come up with an idea, and then once we start to vet through it and we build a business plan and look at financial projections, sometimes it's not as good of an idea as we thought. And that's okay. That's okay. We can pivot. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We covered a lot of information. You've got our contact us information, and we'll be back tomorrow morning and most weekday mornings. So thank you for your time. Hope to have a chance to work with you. Bye-bye.